didn't have the time. So
You know what?
here we go.
That's so reality for dad life, right? The fact that
Yeah.
I want to write it down, but I just didn't have the time. But yeah, episode 1, right? This might be episode 20, like we mentioned, episode 1. Who knows?
Who
But
knows?
my co-host, do you want to introduce yourself? I figure introduction should be a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Do we need like a little story time, or are we just gonna do a quick little
I'd
little
say
snippet?
the 30-second elevator pitch on name, um, number of kids, because we are talking
Yep.
about dads, right? So that
Yep.
kind of helps out. And then I guess season of life, like, but I think you could tell that with kids, right? If you want to share the age, but you could say
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
season 1, new age, or what season of life you're in. And I think that's good enough. I will have another podcast where we go like deep down the rabbit hole of how do we
Yeah.
become dads, right?
Yep. Yep. Okay, so yeah, a little bit about myself. I am Travis. I am 30, newly 34 years of age, and I have three children. I had to make sure I said that right because I just had a brand new baby.
Yes,
I am in
congratulations.
the, thank you. I am in the toddler baby stage right now. So I
Mm.
have a 4 year old son, and then a 2.5 year old daughter, and then a almost month old daughter as well. So three kids, living life, freshly new homeowner as of like a year and a half ago.
Wow, a
You
lot
know,
to congratulate you on then. That's awesome.
oh yeah, we're just partying it up over here, living life in NorCal. Which who's better, SoCal or NorCal? I don't know. We might have to talk about that
That's
later.
another podcast. That's another
Oh
podcast. I
yeah,
know,
we
right?
could dive deep into that. So
Awesome.
yeah, that's a little bit about myself.
Awesome. I'm Rob, and I'm obviously in SoCal, as you can tell by that previous comment. I'm also a father of three, and I'm in this step ahead of Mr. Travis, right? I've got a 12-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 4-year-old. So we're just finishing up. Oh, she'll turn 5 in a month or so. So we're just finishing up that toddler scene and getting into the whole now I can communicate my feelings scene. So
Mm.
that's going to be a trip. And I think, Travis and I are friends. We've been friends before the SoCal, NorCal split. And on top of that, we had storylines that kind of cross pollinated and a lot of stuff that we were interested in, things that we're working on individually as parents, as partners. And we both have passion projects that we were building. And I think that's what came about the dads in real life is that we wanted just to share our real lives, kind of some insights being the seasons that we're at in hopes that it can give you little nuggets to anyone who listens to this in the future, be it you're thinking about being a dad, be it that you are a dad, maybe you know a dad, right? Maybe you're married to a dad, right? So that's kind of
Hmm.
the reasons why we started this, and we're just gonna go off the cuff. We did a little research, but like Travis said, that research is somewhere else right now.
Yes, and I forgot to mention it, but I guess if I was talking about my little Instagram tagline, I would
Oh
say
yeah,
I'm full time dad, free time woodworker. So,
nice. I
I'm
like
at home
that.
with the kids, just breaking barriers over here.
He
Um,
is.
and we like to joke, me and my wife, that I it's not fair. I go to the grocery store and everybody applauds me for doing my grocery shopping with
That is
my
kind of.
kids,
Mm-hmm.
and she doesn't get any of that. So
No,
it's still not fair. You're like, oh, there's a mom doing her thing as per the usual. But with me, it's like, oh, good job, Dad. I'm like, all
well,
I'm doing is grocery shopping,
Well, it's out of the norm, right? And that's kind of what we're
right?
here to talk about. That's what we're here to kind of change a little bit is, kind of the new norm. And like Travis, my Instagram, I guess you could say is I'm kind of a dadpreneur. Before I used to be an entrepreneur and then got burned from doing that and I had kind of like the the lull in life enough to hear that hey, this is probably not the path I want to be going down, especially because I wanted to be a parent, right? I wanted to be a dad. And now I'm on a journey of making it all work in hopes with Travis, right? We're hoping that this kind of helps other dads make it all work, that you can be a present dad, that you can be a loving and supportive partner and still work on what you want to work on. Whereas before I knew growing up, it was like, it's a trade. There's sacrifices. You got to do one or the other. So yeah, that's kind of my background. But today, we're going to talk about something near and dear to our hearts. and that is completionism, and that's a big word. Travis, can you kick us off? Tell us about
Yeah,
completionism, or like how do you see it rear its ugly head
its
or a
ugly
good
head.
head? Right? Is it ugly? Is it not? We're gonna talk about that today.
Yeah. Oh, I love that you said that because there's a lot of like, well, that's not so bad, and maybe that has some good sides to it. I was talking with Rob a little while ago, and I said, hey, we should talk. We should talk about this idea of like, it comes up with dieting. It comes up with working out, reading books, like this idea of like, oh, I have to finish what's on my plate. And Rob was like, yes, completionism. And I'm like, oh, we have a word for it. That's great. Rob knows all the good stuff. So he's ahead in life. And I love this. I'm gleaning all of the information you have to give me, Rob. So we're going to be talking today about where did that come from? Why do we have
Mhm.
this idea that we have to finish the book if we don't like it? Why do we have to finish the food if we don't like it, or if we're full? I don't know,
Mhm.
and beyond.
Yeah.
So where did that start?
So for me, it definitely was a childhood thing, and I didn't know it till I was an adult. And two folds. So one fold is I'm still a gamer. I love games, be it board games, console games, computer
Mm,
games, and so I think I first got a glimpse of completionism as in a game. Like I wanted to beat the game. I would
mm,
spend hours playing games until I beat it. Not only that, and it's something that I've noticed over the years talking to other dads is there's like levels to completionism, right? I wasn't the guy doing all the side quests and getting all the jewels and making sure I checked every single box, but I did want to complete the game. And I think for me as a kid, that was already instilled, right? And then being in our household with three boys and a little bit of food, it's like you finish what's on your plate, right? Like that was the rule. That was the 11th commandment, right?
oh yeah,
Thou shalt
oh
not
yeah.
leave the table unless everything's on your plate. And I had like visceral nausea reaction to some of those finishing those plates. So I think a combination of the environment I grew up in, seeing that, and I think the culture that I grew up in also is like, hey, as a man, you finish what you start, like period, right? That's just how it is. And so getting that in the game reverse, right, getting that in the environment I was raised in, definitely had some positives, which we'll go over in a minute because I want to know about like your experience with completionism. But that it also, now looking back, was a source of some struggles that I've had that I'm currently still working on. So when did you first come in contact with kind of a completionism or that need to, I need to finish this?
Yeah, yeah. That's fun that you brought up the game idea because I wasn't thinking about that, but I
Mhm.
would always do that. A couple things come to mind. The first would be very similar to you in a lot of regards, but finishing what's on your plate. That was
Mhm.
absolutely just a requirement when I was growing up. Obviously our parents had great intentions. I think a
Mhm.
lot of times when you're a young kid, you're like, ew, that's gross. I don't want to eat those peas. Dad doesn't have to eat all his piece. Why am I gotta eat my piece? So part of that was in there. But yes, always had to finish what's on your plate. Um, I am not one to start a movie and not finish it.
Mm.
I mean, yeah,
So hard. So
we
hard.
watched a lot of movies growing up, and so I love the idea of just finishing a story. Like
Mhm.
I started, I'm in this thing, I need to know how it ends.
Mhm.
So there's some of that. I think that's where the completionism thing uh, would would have started for me when I was young. The eating what's on your plate definitely has uh, gone all the way up until now. Until recent, you hear more people talking about that for dieting and other purposes. It's just like,
Mhm.
hey, you don't have to eat until you're like way overstuffed, right? Oh, wait, maybe I put too much on my plate, or maybe I did, but it doesn't matter. I can just not. Whoa,
Mhm.
whoa. Unlocking that thought in my head was, it's funny how cemented that was in my head.
And it is true, right? It's like one of those things where, like, cognitively we know about it, but we've been doing the reps for an entire life. It's so hard to change. And I think it's part of just like that cognitive loop of us needing to fill the gaps, right? So if you think about like you mentioned movies and stories, it's like I want to know what happens next, so I can't stop. Mo will tell you like one of the hardest things for me is when a movie ends, especially a new movie, and it goes to be continued. Like that is the worst thing. I have almost stopped watching series because of that, right? Like I can't believe you did that to me. And I knew that was coming and I still can't believe you did that to me. So I think it's our by nature, right? In our DNA to find the gaps in storylines and want to fill it. So I think part of this completionism comes from not only environment growing up, but like there's a gap I need. And for me, it's like for dads, like I need to fix it, right? I need to know the solution. I need to find where this story ends. And so I think that's part of it. Now, when it comes to like you were mentioning nutrition, I think it can rear its ugly head. I think even in exercise, it can rear its ugly head, but it does also have a lot of benefits. Like in the beginning, like as a kid, learning to sit there and finish your homework, right? I think that's doing hard things. I think is a great lesson to learn. Finishing what's on your plate when it comes to healthy eating, I think is a good thing. But those same seeds, right, create fruit of now, like I mentioned it the other day in one of my stories, is like, hey, like I've been working so hard with my head down, just grinding and hustling that when I look up, I realize I've taken a turn that I didn't want to take. And yet I'm so far down that path, it's scary to try to backtrack. Like I don't want to go back. So I'd rather finish knowing that it's going to be in failure than like being honest with myself to say like, hey, new data has arisen and maybe this is not the path I want to take. And so I think completionism has made that challenging over the years to say, hey, I'm not quitting, right? It's not that I'm quitting because quitting has another negative connotation to it, right? It's
Yep, I was
no,
thinking the sports aspect. That was
sports is
exactly what came
another.
to mind. So
Tell me, tell me about sports.
well, it goes along with what you said. It really just complements what you were saying in regards to when we were younger. We're taught
Mhm.
that we made a commitment. I played
You got to play the
soccer when
full
I was a
season.
kid. Yeah, like if you want to do it, you're gonna do it, and you will commit to the season. And then when you're done, then you can decide to do something different. But you have to finish what you started. And so generally, yeah, that has good merit to it. But where it is an issue is what we're talking about now.
So
Is
here's a question. Here's a question for you,
Okay.
because we're in this right now with gymnastics. It's what part of the, let's say, percentage, right, of the, hey, babe, you signed up for a gymnastics season, right? It goes 3 months. We agreed to do one practice, two practices a week, and we're going to do that. What part of that is from a parenting standpoint of, hey, there are going to be days where we don't want to do the work, but we do the work, right? It's just part of life to learn to do things we don't want to do because it leads to something we do want, so to speak. Does that kind of make sense? So what part of it is
Absolutely.
that, and what part of it it's like you just need to do it because you said you were going to do it, right? Is it the lesson learned from the parents, or it's like, hey, I paid $60 per day, right, of this gymnastics class, like you're going to finish it. So where do you stand on that?
Yeah, well, that's tricky. I gotta say, I don't have much experience in that regard, just because I don't have kids at that age yet.
Well, how
But
about when you were younger though? So do you
yeah,
think it's because of that the parents were like, hey, Travis, we signed up for soccer, you're playing the whole season, bud?
yeah, yeah. That's a tough one. Of like what I'm curious. I think
Hmm.
realistically, I think probably my parents were like, well, yeah, we paid money, so you are
Exactly,
doing
me
it.
too, me too.
I understand that. But yeah, I don't know. How much life lesson was in it mixed in with the making sure the money's worth was there. I
Mhm.
I was also I'm a firstborn. I'm the oldest of three boys.
Mhm.
Just like yourself. Again, we are very similar
So
in
similar,
many a
yep.
way. Um, and so I just kind of I feel like I fall into that stereotype of like the firstborn. I just was like, I I do what I'm supposed to and I follow the rules.
Mhm.
But I also wasn't an overachiever by any means either. So I like starting things and then I don't finish them. That's another thing in regards to completionism. I guess I don't. Uh, eh, that's not what we're talking about. I don't want to digress too far. Um,
Yeah.
and if as a parent, as a
Mhm.
dad, I certainly want to have that lesson ingrained into my kids when they are of age where they want to commit to something. Um, I'm definitely going to be reminding them of, what a commitment means, and how what that cost is to an
Hmm.
extent, right? Based off their age and
Hmm.
what they can handle. But I don't know. I feel like looking ahead, I feel like, man, I'll also want to be sensitive
Hmm.
to how they're feeling about something, right? There's like, well, I said I want to do it, but I don't want to do it anymore. That's like, okay, that's not a good excuse, but like, well, there's always something to be learned. So I'm just thinking of all the different opportunities that would arise in that. It's always a teaching moment, and that's what I want to lean into as a dad, is be
Hmm.
intentional with those moments that I have with my kids. Is if they're, well, Bobby's, bullying me. I don't like the class because he's being mean. Oh, well,
Got it.
yeah, let's
Hmm.
let's let's yeah, let's talk about that, and obviously protective dad, like I'm like, I want to be like, who's Bobby? Let's take care of this Bobby. But
Let
at
me
the
let
same
me
time,
talk to Bobby.
let me go talk to Bobby.
Let me go talk to
Uh,
Bobby.
so, but we also have to let our kids do hard things, right?
Yeah.
And you want to fit. I don't want to go too far down this rabbit trail, but also this is dad life 101.
Hmm.
It's just you want to take care of things for your kids, but you have to let them like experience it. Otherwise, they're not going to learn it.
You know what? I would like literally just talking about this the other day with Mo too. It's like, I think in even there's cognitive research out there right now in adults and even in kids saying that like, hey, when we do hard things and we follow through and we complete it, come to completion with it, we build the necessary tools and synapses and highways to kind of do the next hard thing a little bit easier. And not easier as in like we want to do it, but like we develop grit, right, to do
Yep.
that.
Yep.
And there's also the opposite of that though. When we start hard things and we stop because of just feeling emotionally like I don't want to do this, it also does the other thing. It makes the next time you want to do a hard thing probably not going to do it. And so it's even more impactful in children though, right? So when they
Yes.
are shown not only from their parents but in adults that it's okay not to do hard things, and then themselves try it and I don't feel like doing it, then that's not cool. So I think there's that aspect of it. But to bounce on what you said before, at the same time, as a parent, I want to create space. And even before I get there, like one of the frameworks that I use that's been really helpful as a dad, especially dealing with a lot of the stuff I grew up with my parents, like we all go through ups and downs with their parents, is the realization that it's not because I used to say this all the time, and maybe those who are listening, and I don't know if Travis ever said, but I used to say, you know what? I want to be a better dad than my dad was, not negatively, but like, hey, he set the bar high. But I want to do better. And even if you had a rough childhood, the idea now is like, I don't want to be a better dad than my dad was. I want better tools, right? I know his toolbox was much smaller than my toolbox and resources now. So because of that, I should be able to perform better, right? My tools are better. So I want to be a better dad. So when I say that from now on or in the future, that's what I mean in that aspect. So right now with the kids in sports, it's like, hey, I want to be able to create enough space and trust and love with them that they can be like, Dad, I don't want to do gymnastics anymore. And these are the reasons why. Great. Those are reasons for you. Then there are reasons for me. Versus in the past, like I could only imagine having this conversation with my mom growing up. Like, Mom, I don't want to do little league anymore. No, we paid money. You're doing little league, but here are the reasons why. Don't want to hear about it. Right? Like that's basically it.
Yep. Yep. I love that you put that language to it. I remember hearing this on your live. I think you were
Mhm.
talking about it. Is that yes, we want to do even better than our parents did, and I can imagine many people are listening, and maybe they didn't have both parents. Maybe they
Mhm.
had a tough childhood. Maybe they had a great childhood, but one way or the other. I like that language of going, they utilize the tools that they had at the time. We all
Mhm.
wish we did better. Hindsight's 2020, but we can just look now and go, don't we can't just blame our parents for everything.
No. No.
We go, hey, you did the best you could with the tools you had, and now I'm gonna put as many in my tool belt as I can and
Exactly.
and do that. You know.
Exactly.
Um, that's great. I didn't mention it before, but if I, like pop out of the picture, the allergies are hitting hard. And so if you're watching on video, I might just be like trying to get the snot out of my nose because
Yeah.
this
And if
is
you're listening on audio and you hear what sounds like a tornado, it's just Travis taking care of business. That's about it.
there you go. There you
Um,
go.
but yeah, on this to kind of bring this home, right? Because
Yes.
I want to be respectful of both of our times. When it comes to completionism too, I think it when especially as a parent, even as a parent, but also like coaching dads, working with dads and other parents, is I think it also has to do with personality types, right? And I always use the gamer analogy because again, I'm a big like MMO like storyline kind of gamer. And so I use a lot of analogies from to games because my kids play games too. So that's a language that we understand. So that's how I also teach them is that there's different character classes, right? There's different kind of characters going into this. So if you're the type of parent or dad, or if you have kids that are like this, that are like, hey, I want to do sports, but like, I don't need to win the first place trophy. Like, if I score this game or not, I just want to hang out with friends more than anything. Then you know what? I would not be concerned with completionism with that child or that person or that student. But
Yeah.
then as we start to develop in different character classes, there's some characters, right? Some people that I've worked with in the past where it's like, hey, I know I have this kind of personality that I get the FOMO and I want to win and I want to win bad, but I'm willing to put parameters on this. It's kind of like the quitting scenario where it's like, hey, I'm okay stepping away from this as long as these three boxes get checked, then I'm good, right? I've got new data. So with these guys or parents or kids that are like, hey, they're able to still have like if it crosses either way, I'm good, I'm done, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, then that's cool too. It's the ones who they get so far into it of checking those boxes, finding all the the secondary class weapons and so on and so forth, that it ends up starting to look like OCD type of characteristics, right? Where it becomes
Ah.
obsessive compulsive. Then that's when I have an issue with completion. That's when I'm like, hey, you don't need to finish that book. Like, if you read the first chapter and it doesn't do anything in your life, but Rob, you don't understand. Like, this is a book on parenting. Yeah, but you don't need to finish that book. Or secondly, and I see it online. I don't know. Do you have a LinkedIn account? And I just saw this
I
recently in
do.
LinkedIn account. Okay,
Yep.
so start to be aware of this. Like when you start signing up or you're using new software, it's like, oh, you are 75% done with your profile.
Yes. Yes. Yep.
It just kind of irks me the wrong way.
And
It's
it
like
stays there. It just
it
lives there.
stays there,
I'm like,
right? So
I'm as done as I want to be with it.
yeah, and it almost forces you to play the game, to complete your profile. Then there's this big celebratory thing, right? And then you're on to the next level. So I think completionism, I think completing some things is a great thing. I don't think you should be forced to complete things with new data, new information, as long as you have parameters, right? You have a plan going into the game, then I think you'll be fine. But it's when you aren't aware of your personality type, right? Aren't aware of your kids' personality types, and you start doing things that might create this FOMO, might create this need, compulsive need to finish things. I think that's when we get down kind of a dark rabbit hole.
Yeah, because that need to finish, maybe it comes from pride, maybe it comes
Mm-hmm.
from yeah, your youth. You feel like I have to do this, or I'm less than, or whatever. um the motivation needs to be different. I guess what I appreciated considering when we talk about completionism is this idea that um healthy things can come from steering clear of that, in the sense of,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I'm not getting anything out of this book anymore. I'm just gonna set it down. I don't. Why would I finish that? Hey,
Mm-hmm.
I am full. Like, I don't need to finish
Yeah.
the last of this on my plate. Plus, I have chickens. I can give it to them. Oh man,
Or
now we're really
I
living,
I am
huh?
tired, so I'm going to take a break from doing the next set, right? Like I don't need to do these unbroken push-ups, right?
Yep, yep. And you're gonna be better for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I need to stop what I'm trying to achieve right now, because it's crazy making. It's there. I feel like there are a lot of things that have negative impact because
Mm-hmm.
of the completionism in that regard. Because hey, it's lost time with your family, or
Mm-hmm.
it is um wasted time, because what are you getting, what positive things are you getting out of that? It's almost like you need a little pause, a little self-assessment in the middle of whatever that is. And like you
I
said,
think.
if the boxes are checked, then I'm done, or
Mhm.
what have you.
And I think it's exactly what you said. I think at the end of the day, and I think this is going to be a common theme on a lot of the topics we talk about, is there's good and bad with everything, right? And we always hear that kind of saying, like, it's all about quantity control, right? Like there's no such thing as a bad thing. It's only if you're doing it all the time. So when it
Yeah.
comes to anything around completion, like I said, I think completions, finishing something that's hard that you started, that is good for you, I think there's always going to be a benefit from that. But like you mentioned before, assessing. I think having a feedback loop in life, maybe it's with your partner, maybe it's with some good friends, inner circle, maybe even with your kids, right? I have a feedback loop with my kids to know that, hey, I'm building this awareness around, I am going down that rabbit hole. I am going too deep, and I didn't mean to do that. So I think, if you have the awareness around it, I don't think you'll fall on the negative side of completionism as often. We still
Oh,
do, right?
absolutely.
There's still going to times, but I
Yep.
think it's getting easier to be aware of that.
Yeah, to have kind of loose hands,
Yeah.
that works out with parenting too.
Oh my goodness, does
With
it?
your kids,
Yeah.
how many times do we go out and we go, this is what we're doing today, and how many times, especially if you have toddlers or babies, does that not happen?
Yeah.
And that's
I've
like,
stopped
okay.
saying that. I've stopped
Yep.
saying that, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's just my expectations that I get frustrated with. And then I pour that out onto the kids, and they're like, why is dad
Yes.
a dumpster fire now? We don't know what just happened. Right. But
Yep.
it's all my expectations. So yeah, no, I totally understand that. I love that analogy of loose hands. Right. I'm still here. We're still kind of, and I use this analogy of the bumpers on a bowling alley, right? I want my
Yeah.
kids to not need that little track to throw the ball. I want them to chuck it. I want them to do it. But your mom and I are here to make sure that ball gets to the finish line.
Yeah, and you don't end up in the
Yeah,
gutter.
exactly. Exactly. Okay, sir. I think anything else that you want to add to that? I think that's a great place to kind of finish our day one, episode one. And not only that, I can officially hear the rain come through your mic now.
Okay,
I
see,
know it's
yep.
howling.
I was
I know
wondering
it's
if it was
howling.
that. I should have set the stage beforehand. I'm sitting here in my shop. If you are only listening to audio, you can't see the mess that is involved in here, but I'm in the middle
It
of a
is an
project.
amazing. I'm a little jealous of the woodworking shop that Travis has. He is a skilled creative in that space, um, and
And it
I
is
like
raining
straight
hard.
lines. Yeah, it is.
Oh,
It is.
yes.
It's howling.
One day we're going to see this place adapted to some more straight lines like yours.
There you go.
Let
There
me
you
tell
go.
you,
That works.
we'll get there.
Okay, so with that, guys, I want to say thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. If you listen to this and it brought you any laughter or any nuggets, leave us a like and a share. And on top of that, if there's any topics, literally broad spectrum, when it comes to being a dad in real life, let us know because we'd love more opportunities to talk on subject matters that you guys are interested in. Sound good?
Love it.
Okay, guys. Again, we're not experts. We're not doctors of dadhood. We're just dads in real life.
Ciao.